On today's pod, we were loaded with football, as you would expect on a Monday. I'm going to run through the best win, worst loss, as I do. Also, some numbers you're going to like. We have an award we're going to give out, and also fun with standings. Denver, getting it done, down 17-3 at Philadelphia. What does it mean? What does it mean for Philadelphia with Mike Sando? We'll talk with him about Washington's incredible comeback. A little on Jeffrey Simmons, or a lot on Jeffrey Simmons. Tennessee finally getting on the right side of things. And something else I've been thinking about for a while on the couch watching games, is it actually getting easier to score late when you need that game-winning tying field goal? The numbers may shock you. And my first ever 2025 college football top 12, which everyone will enjoy, and life advice. This is the Ryen Russillo podcast presented by FanDuel. And if you're betting on the NFL, FanDuel is the place to do it. They've got everything. Same game parlays, quick bets for when you want to jump in live and your way so you can set your own lines. The app's fast. It's easy to use. And best of all, when you win, you get paid out instantly. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com/Ryen, R-Y-E-N, to get started. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, and Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. We start today's pod recapping week 5. So 5 things from week 5. We'll do best win. We'll do worst loss, which is not hard. We'll give out an award. We'll have some fun with numbers. Take a look at fun with standings as well. And a good quote. All right, best win. You can make an argument for New England at Buffalo, getting that one. Sunday Night Football. The AFC East stuff, which just has been dominated by Buffalo here, and the Drake Maye kind of coming out national party. And maybe even on this podcast, as I'd admitted, I don't watch a ton of New England. I was aware of what he was doing, but that was so much fun. We'll spend some more time on that, maybe with Sando, who's going to join us later in the show. I'm going with Denver's win at Philadelphia for a bunch of different reasons. Let's run through them. They were down 17-3 entering the fourth quarter. Not a great spot to be in against the defending champs. If you look at the Broncos franchise history, when entering the fourth quarter down 14 or more points on the road, they had been as a franchise 1-112. 1 win, 112 losses. I'm not a huge Bo Nix guy, but he got it done yesterday. Now, am I a little harsh on Nix because of, there's that number out there, how he basically just doesn't get it done against the teams that are 500 or better? Well, that's not really that alarming considering we're talking about a rookie, and for what he did as a rookie and this team getting to the playoffs, even though there's other elements out there, defense, and, some of the guys they have are just absolute studs. That's just a win. It's a win across the board to have Bo Nix as a rookie get your team into the playoffs. So I'm probably being a little harsh on that. He also, in this game, on throws that were 10 or more air yard throws, he started on those throws 1 of 8. So I was kind of like, this is kind of some of the stuff with him. There's also a stat they showed on the Sunday Night Football broadcast that I thought was really interesting since the start of 24. So it's that rookie class with all these quarterbacks in it going into last night's game. So a carryover the first month plus of this 25 NFL season. The quarterbacks with the most scrambles. Here's the list. Jaden Daniels at 85, which is an outrageous number. Number 2 over that same time frame is Mahomes with 60. So that means Jaden's that many more. And look, he completely turned it around in that Chargers game yesterday, and he'd missed a couple games with injury. They had McLaurin out. So I thought that was a huge win by the Commanders as well. 3rd on the list, Drake Maye. 4th on the list, Bo Nix. 5th on the list, Josh Allen. So it's a crazy list because you have 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks doing it in the league right now. I'd include Lamar in that group. And who knows? Maybe we have to reassess some of that stuff with Baker. But then you have the 3 rookies from last year where you're like, look, what do we say on this podcast all the time? It's cool that you can do it, but if your default when you're comfortable is I'm just going to run. But again, it's odd in comparing it to Allen and Mahomes, who are, maybe the first 2 guys you would take if you could pick a quarterback to start your franchise with right now. So that was just a weird number. I think the Bo Nix conversation for me is pretty simple. He feels like a high floor QB, which may be me entirely missing the point. It may be me being dismissive of, well, what does that mean? He's not going to make a ton of mistakes, and if we play good defense, we have a chance to win every single game. Like, that seems pretty good. Like, if you think about being described as high floor, I don't know if it's a compliment. I don't think I'd want to be introduced that way and be like, hey, this is Ryen. He's kind of like a high floor guy, which just immediately feels like a negative. Like I'd want maybe my dentist to be a high floor guy, mechanic. If I were a woman in an arranged marriage and somebody said, look, he's not going to be the most fun you've ever had, but he's a high floor guy. He's got a ton of goats, So there's certain things that I think high floor is a compliment, even though I wouldn't want to be described that way. And I don't think it's a compliment when you're talking about quarterbacks, but they beat the bad teams. There are some ironic parallels between kind of the high floor discussion we have about quarterbacks, where it's this great defense. Usually you have some kind of running game. Philadelphia had that last year. And again, the irony being that there are parallels between a Bo Nix and a Jalen Hurts and all the different Hurts conversations that I'm not going to do again on the pod today. But in that fourth quarter, when they're having this comeback, Nix is 9 of 10. It wasn't like they were doing it all on the ground, even though Dobbins has been a real boost for them. It wasn't just about the defense, even though the defense was incredible. He hit Sutton on a 3rd and 15 for 34 yards. Look, I don't think there are quarterbacks playing in the NFL that are never going to make that throw, but that was one of those down and distances where I was like, all right, what's he got here? And Sutton, who probably did as well of a job is the way I should phrase it, against Mitchell as anybody in that wide receiver cornerback matchup. So to be able to come back in this one, and by the way, hit the 2-pointer where you're like, man, they're going for 2 in this spot. And Peyton had said after the game, like, hey, we came here to win the game. And I know it sounds like a really good quote, but I love the play call because it was quick. It's Troy Franklin, just one step in. You're not going to have Nix back there. Like some of these 2-point conversions or the 2-yard out, whatever goal to go play that you have, where sometimes like the better quarterbacks can hang and extend the play, not necessarily by running around, but they're going to be looking at different things. And then I think there's some quarterbacks, like when that first read is gone, they're just toast. And in this play in particular, it's like we're not even giving Bo Nix the opportunity to freelance. Now, granted, the corner could have jumped the route instead of Franklin and not have the angle. Then he's got to go to some other second, third read on it. But I just love that play call because it was so quick. It was so decisive. It was going to take kind of any of the thinking out of it for a quarterback in that spot. And then again, on the defensive side, Benito, who's just a terror in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, 2.5 sacks all over the place. They stopped Philadelphia. I saw 6 total sacks, by the way, for Denver. I saw it also at 7. Who cares? But they stopped him on 6 straight third downs in this game as well. So considering everything going into that game, down 17-3, that's the best win of the entire week. Worst loss, no contest. Arizona's up 21-3 on the worst team in the NFL. They're at home. Every single time I look up a Titans stat when it's like 25th in the league, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, ooh, okay, it's not the worst, like they are on third down, where they're the worst in the NFL. They went 5 of 15 yesterday. That's actually good for them. That's above what their season total is. They're under 30%, I think, on the season. So look, at one point, too, with Cam Ward, I'm watching this going, I don't even think he has a chance. Guys are dropping balls all over the place. I'm not telling you he was necessarily great, but it actually got me to start thinking, like, is there a segment somewhere, maybe not on a Monday, where you just look at Tennessee and go, you weren't even ready for a quarterback. And considering where Cam ranked as a prospect in comparison to other top 10 picks at that position, a lot of people, draft evaluators, had Cam Ward behind all sorts of guys. But again, this isn't necessarily on him. I haven't watched him this year thinking like he's the main problem. He's just a rookie without any support whatsoever, unless the other team is going to gift wrap it to you. So fourth quarter, it's 21-6. Mercado, the running back for Arizona, breaks it 72 yards, sort of, and once again pulls a Deshaun Jackson, fumbles it right before the goal line. It looked at first like the defensive player got in there, but he didn't even touch the football. This is like one of the closest ones I've ever seen. And you can just think of the review people going through it back at HQ, talking with the officials on the field. I just wonder if they think it's even a tie and they're just like, fuck this guy. Not this guy in particular, but anytime it happens. Adonai Mitchell for the Colts had one. He was disastrous, but I think he actually had lost the ball more than, he wasn't securing it. I don't know if it was necessarily a celebration, but it was a major factor in that Colts loss to the Rams. And you can go on TV and scream and yell and say it has to stop happening. It's not going to stop happening. For whatever reason, there's just dudes that think this is cool, and it never stops. And Gannon was losing his mind on the sideline for this one. So it also is fitting to give the award, the Mike Vick jersey with a pit bull photo shoot award for worst decision of the week. We are giving that to Mercado because it would have been 28-6, and then it isn't. Credit to not Pittsburgh. We're not going to talk about them. Tennessee still had to go 80 yards after that play. Then they had the rare fumble recovery in the end zone for a touchdown. And then they had to go 71 yards and 11 plays and 153 to hit the game-winning field goal. So Tennessee still had to do all of those things. Granted, the middle play in there is just absurd. But the long drive after the fumble, the long drive to set up the game-winning field goal. So Tennessee had to do those things on the road in that spot and force Arizona to punt to get the ball back. So there you go. All right, some numbers. Jackson Dart has the highest scramble rate of any quarterback. That's a starter. Yes, there are guys that, and I'm just talking about, like, I just look at it and go, that guy's not a starter. That guy's not a starter. It's like average depth of target, that number that I love. The guys that are like top 9 are all guys that don't even really play. So there you go. By the way, shout out Spencer Rattler. It finally happened. The guy is balling aggressive, probably, but he's been fighting his ass off out there for one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I was thrilled to see that. You don't see a team like the Giants turn it over 5 straight possessions very often. They did just that. Javonte Williams. Did you know that he's 3rd in the NFL in rushing? Dallas Cowboys running back. Blowout win yesterday. Dallas doesn't necessarily run the ball a ton because of the scores of the games that they've been in. They've been behind in 3 of 5, and then one of the other games is that absurd game. Like Russell Wilson will at least have that game with that weird game against the Giants, the overtime winner. So Dallas doesn't run it a ton because of what the game dictates them doing, but they're actually really good in yards per carry. They're 4th in the NFL. They're actually also the number 1 yardage offense in the NFL. They're number 4 in points. And why are they not better? Because they're last in points per game allowed in the NFL. Let's have some fun with standings. The AFC's number 1 seed as of today, the Indianapolis Colts. Out of the playoffs as of this morning, we'll see what happens tonight. Kansas City. The best team in the NFL, maybe the best team in the NFL. Now that this Packers love has kind of fallen off a little bit. Philadelphia loses one at home. Detroit, they would be a 4 seed in the NFC. The Niners would be a 2 seed, even coming off, that incredible win against the Rams there. And we're going to end on this quote. We saw it last night at Sunday Night Football. Quote, "My maturation process is second to none." Stephon Diggs. We get him multiple times this season. It feels like even more so right now. Mike Sando, The Athletic, his Pick 6 column Monday mornings, must read for NFL fans. So we'll go through some notes from that. So I didn't spend a ton of time on Tampa's incredible shootout there with Seattle. Going from Tampa up to Seattle, and granted, look, there's no Mike Evans for Tampa. Seattle's down some defensive players. It's back and forth. So I still think there's some like good stuff you could say about Seattle's offense in all of this. But it feels like every Tampa week is another test of like, where is Baker and where are they in the NFC race? The defensive numbers are actually worse than they were last year on the season compared to 5 weeks in now. So that might be part of it. But to win that kind of game, win it in the fashion they did, I guess whether it's you or just people in the league that you talk to about who this team is, I think that's probably the best place to start because that win was awesome.
It is. And I feel like, going into the year, everybody that I talked to sort of felt like they were in the second tier of NFC teams that's going to have a high floor, but isn't going to go as far. But I think you have to give them a little bit more credit than that. Now, I still think Detroit looks great and probably, would be favored. But at a certain point, I mean, why not Tampa Bay? At least to me, advancing to the championship game. I think they can do that in the NFC because I don't necessarily trust all the other teams either. We'll see what it looks like down the stretch. Is there fundamental, will the Eagles get it together to an extent where they're just running the ball and clicking? Because if they do, I think that's probably a a tougher team. But why not Tampa Bay, given the state of the conference right now?
Do you think, like Jason Light, one, bring in Baker? And by the way, like you look at Baker's number, first year, okay, hey, you might have a starter. We'll see. Not a ton of money, even better the second year. And now he's even better than he was last year this season. He's also, I was looking at average salaries right now. Baker's the 19th highest paid QB, which is still like north of 30 million, which just speaks to what the market is for quarterbacks here. So I'm not calling it a blueprint thing here, but I do think there's an unbelievable irony in that post Brady, one of the supposed greatest minds that we've ever had in the NFL, which I think is like, maybe I'm being a little too UNC-ish about Belichick, but one of the single greatest minds that we've seen in the history of the NFL would have no plan post Brady to like prove some point. And yet Tampa has an incredible post Brady plan. Do you think they thought it would work out this way? Is this something about these retread quarterbacks now working out where the scouting department's going, hey, we loved this guy coming out. So I wonder what went into that.
I don't, and I visit Tampa Bay regularly. I'm trying to remember back to then. I don't feel like I felt like they had some hope and optimism, but I don't think that they felt it was going to be this good. Nobody could have seen that it would be this good. I watch Cleveland every week thinking, my gosh, they had this guy, and they can't get anything going offensively. 12 straight games of bad offense for them statistically. So I think it's a great story. I think there is I think like Seattle's a little bit more like this too, and moving on from Wilson and moving on from Geno Smith, like kind of, not overvaluing, maybe valuing correctly. I think even the Bucs have done a great job of extending his contract in ways that aren't completely over the top either, based on the fact that he's producing as well as anybody in the league.
Yeah, and if he finished maybe like if they had to redo his deal after this year off of these numbers, then maybe you're looking at it as not as bargain.
But they just did it. They just did it after last year, right?
Right.
They just did a deal.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if you had to. If he puts together this kind of season, like end to end, and maybe they play in the NFC Championship game, it's like, hey, now I'm a $50 million guy, and then that changes. But it's very clear that Tampa, whether it's taking Igbuka and going, we don't care. Like, we're not going to care about what our supposed needs. Well, granted, they needed Baker. They needed any kind of quarterback post Brady here. But I just think it's an incredible story, and I think that the whole thing, man, it just makes me want to like. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's a Bucs analysis to be done here. Maybe I need to do this because if you look at what their record was when Jason Light was a GM from 2014 to before they got Brady, it's one of the worst records in the league. I don't even think Jason Light has a winning record yet. It's close, right? But since they got Brady, and then Mayfield, it's like they're one of the best run organizations in the league, it seems like. And maybe they were well run the whole time and they just finally had quarterbacks. And I think Baker's value too goes beyond the stats. He infuses that team with energy and fight. And wouldn't you love to play for him? Just the way he plays and leaves it on the line every day, just his attitude, like the way he just sort of gets it to me. He's an invigorating player, but there's something it's just so interesting to me that you could have said when they got Brady, yeah, it's just Brady. You could almost hey, they lucked into Brady. He wanted to go there. Good for them. No, their offense is better since Brady left. They have a good line. They have good receivers. They find them. They have a good back who's I think is injured, but they've done this across 3 offensive coordinators. I don't think we can. Baker's a huge part of it, but to me, they're a good organization that had a really bad record under the same GM like 10 years ago and 7-8 years ago. That's interesting to me.
You're right. Light is still actually 7 games under 500.
Yeah, and I think he does a great job. Yeah. I think they've been a team that's underappreciated. Are they on? This is going to be 5 straight division titles. Maybe I know it's the South, but like they're a good team. They're not a fluky team.
Maybe Light is like the GM version of Baker Mayfield, except that Tampa stayed with him and Cleveland didn't. So
it's amazing. Yeah. There's so much goes into organizationally, and all the GMs aren't operating with the same deck either. So, I don't know. Did getting Brady change that organization, and now those guys can operate at a higher level in the front office? I don't think Jason Light suddenly got smart in the last 5 years, but it's a fascinating place to me to have that such a turnaround to where they're kind of a model now. And before Brady, people would have said that, but it's a lot of the same people in leadership.
Okay, let's pivot that then to Seattle's decision, because even though with the loss, like, here's a number for you. If you go QBR right now in the NFL, number 1 is Daniel Jones. Yeah. Number 2 is Sam Darnold. Number 8 is Baker. So 3 of the top 8 guys all coming from this same kind of like Wikipedia entry, whoever's doing it. But when the Seahawks passed on Geno, like, I'll admit, I finally gave in on Geno a little bit, where I was like, you know what? This guy's like a lot better than some of the guys that we have hope for every single weekend. And the Vegas part,
agreed.
Right? Like, that's kind of what the analysis is.
I'm there with you. Like, I was with you too. I thought he was undervalued in quarterback tiers every year, all that. He gets a 3 every year, no matter what he does.
It's been a disaster so far in Vegas. But I want to focus on the Darnold part of this, because I'm thinking Darnold away from O'Connell. And they gave him a deal that was kind of like, you're a starter, but, we're not going to go crazy on this whole thing. And now we're looking at the Seattle offense that we would think would be, of both sides of the football. Granted, the injuries and everything yesterday, so I'm making excuses a bit. But I thought in your pick 6, you were pointing out, it was like, you figure McDonald in Seattle's going to he's going to right the ship there once he has the full unit back. But this Darnold gamble, which I think any fair NFL mind would go, are you really making the right choice here? This looks like a complete win, despite, again, they're probably feeling a little gloomy after such a tough loss yesterday.
John Schneider's got some, enterprising risk-taking in him too. Like, think of the 3rd round pick on Russell Wilson when, nobody thought he was the guy, and then they start him in the first year, and he becomes, what he became, when no one thought that, and he saw that. And so to me, to go on from him to Geno Smith and then him overachieve, and they got the best of Geno. The best of Geno's career is going to have been with Seattle. And now you not only get rid of him and bring in Darnold, but remember, they get rid of DK Metcalf. People would have said he was their most talented physically receiver. They move on from Tyler Lockett, who's kind of been an automatic guy for them for 10 years. And they draft a few guys. They make some moves on their offensive line. They got a good rookie, Gray Zabel, in there at guard. And now Darnold is doing this. Darnold is better than he was with the Vikings. I mean, last week I did a piece I've really found it interesting on just sort of the conundrum that Minnesota was in. And last year when Darnold was playing well, I got on a Zoom with the coach and we watched Darnold, and the coach was like, he's doing fine. There's 2 or 3 really good throws in here, but for the most part, he's just kind of mid, and they have a good team around him. We watched Darnold coming into this game this year, and the coach couldn't believe it. He's like, this guy's playing like a tier 1 quarterback. And you have to say he did that yesterday. I know he had the late interception that would bounce off a guy's helmet when he was trying to dirt the ball, but this guy's been great end of games for the most part. Really nuanced play at the position, mature play, like ball placement away from defenders that are going to tag his guys. I mean, he just looks, none of the spasticness that we saw with the Jets, or just even some freneticness with the Vikings where it was, it's too fast. Haven't seen that from him.
I spent a lot of time on Denver's win on the Denver side of things. You broke down the Philly side of things this morning, and I did think about it a little bit. It's like, okay, so if you have Surtain on A.J. Brown, then, you can't expect a ton there. Even the PI, I was like shocked. It's like he lost a battle. But then you have Devontae Smith absolutely go off. And it did cross my mind. It was like, was all the chatter this week about the lack of targets and that Hurts, there's just limitations to his passing game. Did that seep into their mind? Did that get into the play calling? It's like, hey, we can use one of our weapons and actually light it up. But there's still so many, I don't think that's the reason they lost. There's still so many issues with this team that was 4-0 and 4-1. I still give them the benefit of the doubt. It's an incredible win by Denver, but there are some drop-off numbers from 24 to 25 that you point out that feel like there's massive drop-offs in some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's strange to me. I think that their offensive line has just been in the engine for them. It's been great. I don't know if it's as great right now. I don't think that it is. And so does everything flow from that? Because there's always been respect for Jalen Hurts, but not in the way that you carry your team. That when you have a good team, he's a great fit for that. So does that fall off now with the offensive line not being as good? Do they just start slow? I think last year I ran a comparison of their first 5 games last year to this year. And while it's worse this year, it wasn't great the first 5 last year. They really improved as the season went along. I think they were 2-2 last year to start the year, maybe 3-2 at this point. So I give them the fact that it could take time for it to come together and hit stride. I'm just a little concerned. To me, Saquon Barkley's too good to be averaging 3 yards a carry or whatever it is, 3.5. That to me would indicate that there's some blocking and line issues for them. And my concern is that, maybe that line has peaked with Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, and some of these guys that are battling through some things right now. And is that an issue for them that could, possibly not get a lot better as the season goes along?
Yeah, it's one thing like when Dickerson is in and out and you go, okay, well, I don't have a ton of sympathy for you. And then there was a game earlier where it's like, hey, Lane Johnson's feeling something. It's like, okay, but if you have the best offensive line, but then when it turns into Lane's not all the way there, Dickerson's barely playing. And then even Mailata was like after the game, there was a weird quote in there too of just how his body felt. And then you have Saquon, the Saquon debates like, is he waiting for the big play and not taking what's in front of him the rest of the time? You're right. 3.2 yards per carry of a guy that looked like he was in the conversation for MVP at running back, which seems like it's never going to happen again. But it just defaults back to personnel for me. I think like it does.
And remember, I thought they did a great job last year in the first year without Jason Kelce. But that's another, let's just say if Dickerson was in the lineup and Lane Johnson's banged up, but you still have a prime Kelce, right? Maybe that's enough. But, now they don't have a prime Kelce. The center's fine, but, they just may not be as elite up front across the board and playing as elite. And that could have a major impact on the rest of their pieces, because I do think Barkley has had struggles sometimes with numbers in the past with a bad offensive line, and then been absolutely amazing when it's blocked up right.
Drake Maye coming out party, the Sunday night game. The Bills lose the turnover battle for the first time after an NFL record 26 straight games. Did a great job delivering that, Russillo. But I think everybody gets the point. I don't know how many years I'll think about his 2-minute warning throw when Daquan Jones, 92, is pulling him down by the shoulder pads. And I can't believe he was able to stiff arm him off of him enough to keep his knee off the ground. And then 2, with your body being contorted like that with 320 pounds hanging off of your left side, deliver an accurate throw there. And so it actually got me thinking about like the Ryan Poles comments that leaked about Maye and the assessment. And I'm a Caleb guy, so I still think we'll see. Yeah. We'll see if Poles got it right. But, the Maye story was the junior year versus the senior year. Like, what did you want to put stock into with him missing a ton of personnel at UNC the last year, which UNC is not technically, I guess, allowed to acknowledge, if that was a real tweet that we saw today by a directive from Belichick. Do not acknowledge Drake Maye and the Patriots. I don't know, whatever. But what kind of conversations had you had about Maye going into the year? And then, as he has statistically put up some stuff here that's been really, really special. But now that everybody was watching him last night, even with the turnovers from Buffalo, that was a pretty gutsy performance for a team that still isn't that talented.
It was pretty good. So full confession here, when I'm writing the pick six, I'm not watching that Sunday game as close as I would like to, because I'm on the deadline type of thing. So I had it on, wasn't overly studying it. Obviously haven't talked to a lot of people off of that game. Before that, though, I feel like the talk of the Patriots has been a little bit dismissive in terms of they're really not very good. Yeah, May's been fine, but the people that are saying he's arrived, look at who they've played. Or I felt it was a little bit diminished. So I will be interested to see, if that changes at all off of this game. Or I think it definitely. I felt like there's been a gap between the public and certainly Patriots sort of fan enthusiasm and overall league enthusiasm. Not that people are down on it, but I think people just don't think that the Patriots are very good. So they're 3-2. That's their best record. I think that's their best record in the first 5 games in a year for a while.
Since 19.
Going back maybe since Brady was there. So that's something. And I think this is a great win, even though I felt like the Bucs or the Bills, I feel like the Bills 2 weeks in a row just haven't had a lot of juice. Saint game, and this one to me just felt underwhelming from their standpoint. So it only can be positive for Drake Maye and the Patriots to win that game. I think opinions in the league take time to change. That's why we do the quarterback tiers every year and not every week or every month. But to me, that was a super positive development for them. First year with Vrabel, second year with Maye. And I kind of like what I see from them.
So you could argue, hey, Denver's win, New England's win, the best wins. Do you think the most important win might have been the Commanders? Think about it. Like, I can set it up. They're down 10-0. Jaden's 1 of 3, 7 yards in the first quarter. He'd missed a couple games of injuries. McLaurin's out. Noah Brown's out. And, I'm watching that game kind of like, all right, look, the Chargers will probably win this. I still really like him. It was kind of a weird game against the Giants last week. The Herbert pressure thing that I know you've been on and that we've talked about here on this pod. But like, for them to turn it around, they get the fumble, they drive. Then there was the punt return touchdown by Ladd that would have made it, I think, 17-3. And then it's roughing the punter. And all these things just kind of turned on a dime in this game. And it finally felt like Jaden looked like Jaden again. Is I'm sure some Commanders fans are wondering, like, is there going to be some sort of sophomore slump who looked like the best story in the NFL last year?
I agree. They have been invisible to me. Without him. I was thinking of this yesterday. Remember last year it was like, hey, for the first X drives of a season, this is the highest touchdown rate, or things like that in the history of the game. There was stuff, they were so amazing out of the gate. And I just felt like, well, he's not really playing. They've been invisible to me. So I do think that's a huge win for them. Because if you look at their schedule coming up, Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City, Seattle, Detroit, those are, they're going to have to be decent for some of those games. They're going to have to play teams that put some points on the board probably. So, maybe we can rediscover Washington. It has felt like something's been amiss. They're the oldest team in the league, even though they have this young quarterback. And so that's always
he's like the oldest young quarterback though, too.
He is. He's totally mature. He's like a 30-year-old, 23-year-old or whatever he is.
No, I think he's like 25, 26.
Is he Jaden Daniels 25, 26?
Yeah, I'll look it up here again. I don't know if I was rounding up on
he's 24
birthday. What?
He turns 25 in December.
25 in December. All right. So it was the 20. So I gave him a year.
Jaden,
my bad.
I was going to say, if he's 26, man, I missed that. But I just, I think our concern for him last year, we saw it a little bit when he got banged up, was just, hey, a little bit, I don't know if slight of frame, but some guys are sturdier and just the playing style. Is he going to be there every week? So, that's raised its head a little bit this year already. Now, I don't know that, that's going to tell us anything long-term that he's had, been banged up a little bit this year, but that's kind of the thing that I wanted to see off of last year, more than just even the stats being great again, just go through the whole year as a starter and be, consistently able to win with.
Let's focus on the misery index. Explain what you did this morning as one bigger part of your piece.
Yeah, I think I looked at the 10 teams with the worst record in the league, and the Raiders really got me thinking on it because, like a lot of people, we thought, hey, Pete Carroll goes in there. That's an upgrade from Antonio Pierce. Geno Smith goes in there. That's a big upgrade from Aiden O'Connell, who's probably a number 3 quarterback. Just statistically off of the quarterback, if you use like QBR at ESPN is a good gauge for, they should just get 3 more wins just from having Geno. Okay. Just from having what Geno would do normally compared to what Aiden O'Connell would do. So for them to be down, whatever, 30, or they down 37 points, they got outscored 40-0 in the second and third quarters yesterday. So I'm watching that with Pete Carroll, who I have a lot of admiration for, did a great job in Seattle, and you're losing 40-0 to Indy over 2 quarters in the middle of the game. And Geno Smith looks like he can't play anymore.
That's hard to do. It really is, like, to be outscored 40 in 2 quarters.
I think they scored touchdowns on 5 or 6 drives in a row, 5 drives in a row, something like that. Maybe it was 5 or 6 drives in a row. Unbelievable. So then I was looking, I thought the Arizona lost too. They've lost 3 in a row now I think they were tied or leading in the final 5 seconds. You look at, you're numb to Cleveland losing, but the Giants lost double figures at the Saints. I felt miserable for some of these teams and fan bases. Like the Giants, you got Dart in there. All right, let's see how it goes. You get a win, and then you're losing. I think they turned it over on five straight possessions. You lose double digits to the Saints. So I just felt some misery in the league yesterday for some of these teams that you're hoping with Dart, you're hoping with Carroll. There's real passionate fan bases around these teams, and you're looking at this garbage.
Who else did you put in this group?
So I had Tennessee in there. I had even though they won, I think they deserve it. I put Carolina in there as just a complete up and down team. I think I had
you had the Jets
on my own column. The Jets, yeah,
Explain
Jets
the Jets
are 0-5.
thing, because the whole point of Aaron Glenn coming in and with this defensive personnel, there's like a lot of guys on this team I like, and they're terrible on defense.
Absolutely, that was one of the themes of this. Is Aaron Glenn and Pete Carroll, 2 guys who want to come in and win with defense, run game, veteran quarterback, protect the ball, and they're not able to do the things that they really want to do. I do give the Jets some allowance in that, hey, they played Aaron Rodgers, they played Josh Allen, they played Baker Mayfield, who's now in that group, I guess, and they've played Dak Prescott, who's playing as well as anybody in the league, and even Tua for the Dolphins on any given week, can do some decent things offensively. So they've played better quarterbacks than some of these other teams in the misery index have played, but still, giving up 34, 30, 29, 27, 37 when you have a defensive head coach. One thing I didn't really write about in there because it is early, but it came to my mind was, I think Aaron Glenn was hired off of the fact that he comes from this great Detroit program with Dan Campbell. I don't think he was hired because he had great defenses. You see that?
Yeah.
Like if you look at I think they had better defenses that got to be okay in Detroit, but played in a great friendly framework with that great offensive line and the offense putting up a bunch of points. And so, you have a little bit kind of like maybe Steve Spagnuolo has had over the years in Kansas City. You have the cushion of the quarterback who's going to win the games, or the offense that's going to win the games. So I think it remains to be seen what Aaron Glenn is going to do just from a pure defensive scheming or defensive standpoint. I think we all know what he's going to try to do from a culture standpoint, and he may be able to do that. But I think the culture stuff takes time. Pete Carroll was 7-9 twice. Look at what Dan Campbell was in putting that culture, and he was like 4-19, right? Something like that. So that's something that maybe I'm learning from this season is when you're talking about somebody coming in and they're hanging their hat on the cultural change. Now Vrabel's a little bit better now at 3-2, but sometimes that maybe does that cultural change. You still got to have player change, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe the betting on the cultural change is you got to really stick with that guy for a long time, maybe, because it's going to take a while sometimes.
Yeah, nobody wants to start their press conference being like, we have like our 53, we get a bunch of average guys, but they care about the right things.
Pete Carroll hit on 2 home run drafts with John Schneider, to get to get Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas in one draft, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson in another. And in the draft in between that, they got Richard Sherman in the 5th round. So look at Detroit's culture. Yeah, look who they drafted. Look what they've done, right? They put together a really good team, and then that cultural stuff puts it over the top. So when you're coming in to affect culture, you need players to do that for you. And maybe what we're seeing here is that the Jets and the Raiders don't have enough of those players.
Miami's in this index as well. That was an interesting. I don't know how many people were watching it, but Bryce has a really bad pick in the beginning of the game. They're down 10-0, and it was so much fun to watch Carolina turn it around in this game and the big throws he had, and Leggett getting going again, and Tetaroa getting going, and Dowdle at running back just absolutely lighting it up. And yet it's still a game. And I'm watching that last possession from Miami. They've given up the touchdown. They've got 3 plays. They've got 2 minutes to go. And 3rd and 10, I was like, are we going to see a Tua interception? And instead we saw a sack. much like we saw a sack on the 4th down against New England. All right. These huge, huge plays late in the game.
Yep.
And the sack was so bad that they actually had a punt on 4th and 17. They were backed up to their own 15. There's 1:10 left. I mean, there's an argument to be like, hey, you can't actually punt it to these guys. And 4 plays later,
3 timeouts left, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 timeouts left. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a Tua thing. It's obviously with Tyreek being out. But I thought you had made a really good point. Like, hey, this team was already resetting its own expectations based on what they did this offseason.
It has felt a little dead man walking there, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Just like, hey, they fired their gun and now they're out of bullets. And so the question is just going to be, can they hold it together enough that you want to not get a new gun, And I think it's been a interesting situation in Miami because Mike McDaniel was hired to take over from Brian Flores, and they needed a nice guy. They needed that for their team. They needed to be loved up. But I think over time, it's hard to go from loving up your team to controlling your team and being the tough guy later. That's hard to do. So I think McDaniel's been in a tough spot. Obviously, his personality is a little bit different anyway. And then last year, they changed more of their defense than I realized until I started looking at it early in the season. Their defense is bad. They were a top, I think, 11 defense last year, and they're a bottom 2 defense right now. And so that shifts it all. Now you take away Tyreek Hill, which gives you some explosiveness and a fear factor on offense. And I think that they're going to, they could be in some of these types of games against bad teams where they can't. In the end, you're up 17-0. I think Carolina had lost 38 in a row when trailing by that much in a game. And now it's, that streak is broken because they played Miami and that defense. And anytime there's a comeback like that, the other defense didn't hold you. I think that's a big component of this that gets overlooked because we focus so much on Tua, and obviously he has limitations, and that shows up in some of those big moments.
It's so bad for Miami that, the NFL will try at times to have like an NBA type buzz with the trade deadline. And even if the NBA trade deadline is massively disappointing, like it has been, certain years, it's still so much fun to talk about. And I can see like the NFL, not that I don't think there's some like mandate, but like that people click on that stuff. If you were to write the 10, I talked to 15 people in the league, here are the 10 names, and you could go 0 for 10 and it wouldn't matter. The people at The Athletic would be thrilled for you doing it. But whenever I click on one of those, it's just so underwhelming. Like Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins, it's like he could be somebody on the move.
Can I tell you? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you a story I'll tell you a funny story about that. I've done those stories before. One year I was doing this story a few years ago, and I was like, hey, I had 5 trades or 10 trades that would be interesting. And I just randomly called a front office guy from a team, and I said, hey, can I just run these past you? Maybe you have an idea. And he goes, hey, can you not include this one? Because if that one's actually going to go down here soon. But if you write it, it's going to spook it, and it may not happen. And I was like, shoot, why did I call you? And I respectfully didn't run it because I didn't, I can have other ones in there. And it happened. And I'm like, the one time I would have had the trade right, I screwed myself over by checking, hey, is this legitimate enough? So I'm kind of out of that market of doing those trades. Maybe I'll do another one this year, but I was like, dang it.
Was this guy one of your best
very funny.
QB tier voters or something? And you're just like, I got to keep the relationship.
50 voters there's just, oh, no, it's just.
Well, it had to be a relationship thing for you to go.
Sure, it's a relationship thing. Yes. So exactly. Like, look, I mean, but you could actually affect the news with something. You could affect the news with something. So it could actually make it not happen. So there's some of that involved. I could do 10 other ones, and who knows, maybe it wouldn't have happened. I think I ended up hinting or something, writing around it in some way to have myself covered a little bit. But I always laugh at that because they're so hard to get, because I'm not really I'm in the more of the analysis business. I'm not in the, hey, call and find out what that trade is. And then you see this happen all the time. No one reports it till it's actually going to happen like 5 minutes before, right? That's how these things work because they'll fall apart otherwise sometimes. So I just found that funny.
Yeah. And the reason I'm also asking, is there any way we can get Jeffrey Simmons out of Tennessee? Is there any, like, he was a menace yesterday, and I'm not even talking about the pressures or the hits on Kyler Murray. He had one play where he got double teamed, right? And he was out of the hole that the running back was running through. He reached out with one arm, and you would have thought the running back ran into, like, it was like the wall was CGI'd out, or it was some sort of like videoed as like, I mean, it just was an absolute stupid play and display of strength. And I was looking at the contract because I was like, is this guy? Because, look, they reported during the game, they're like, he's on to turmeric. Dude, I will inject turmeric into my eyeballs if that was the result, because it.
Can you imagine if it was that simple?
I think it might be like, there seems to be a refocus, because when Sheila and I were doing like our top 5 guys at each position, I'm like, when he is right though, and he plays with such anger, right, that I'm like, I really feel like I need to still put him on this list, even if it seems like there's a little talk of him potentially regressing. And the way he has played this year is really one of the very few bright spots for the Titans. And then I looked at the contract and I was like, is his contract up? There's an out, but they have him under contract at like a really good number. It's like $20 million the next 2 years as he turns 30 and 31. I'd always wonder, somebody who's playing that special, who's not even close to being on the timeline, which I don't always love and trying to figure out what a team should do with its roster. He is playing at such a special level right now. You wonder if Tennessee goes, hey, we need to add more bodies that are younger as we rebuild this entire thing. Because I just was so impressed with him again yesterday.
That's it. You even saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, where did the time go that he's that old? Because maybe it's just because we don't watch Tennessee as closely. They've been so, bad really since the last 25 games of Vrabel have been bad there. That's amazing. Yeah, I would love to see it. That's interesting. Like, who are the great players on bad teams? That's an interesting study to do. And at where's that age point to where they could be super attractive to a team that needs that to get over the top. I don't know what the trade implications are for him, or what
I never
the
know.
Cap accelerations would be. I could look at it.
But your league, as far as like the value on what stuff is, it never makes any sense to me. Like, there'll be rotation guys in the NBA where you get a first round pick. Now, granted, the first round value, even in the 20s versus a first round pick in the NBA, like, it's very clear in the NBA that smarter GMs are going, hey, these picks are actually kind of overvalued, and I don't care if we package a couple of them for somebody who's not even a star. But then you'll have somebody who I think is like an impact 2-year window guy in the NFL, and it's like, you want a third rounder for this guy? I
know.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, I would give you a third rounder for Jeffrey Simmons. And look, I think it would actually take more than that. And who knows, like, if he is this stalwart and the right guy, like, I know he plays with a ton of attitude, and maybe in the past that wasn't always their favorite thing with him. But you wonder, hey, we just want.
He would save him money to move him. To trade him, they would save him the cap by trading him. So
they would. Now we're cooking.
Yeah. So if you go to Over the Cap, overthecap.com, and you find his player page, you'll see over on the right side, there's kind of this pull down menu. And so, right now it shows that, hey, if he was cut, there'd be $28 million in dead money and they'd lose $6 million in cap space. But if you go traded after June 1 this year, you'd see, the dead money would be like $5 million and the cap savings would be 18 million, almost 18 million. So, you have to also take into account it's during the season. He's already received some of his salaries. And so it's not exact, but it's usually a good indication of, how movable somebody is. And that's interesting. I'd be interested to see how big picture they are looking there. What type of pressures on the head coach to get some more wins this year, how that's all comes together. But man, he is a really special player.
But see, Titans fans, you didn't expect that much on a national podcast on the Titans.
Yeah.
We could do some other teams now too. I talked to Kevin Clark last week, and I was joking about how, like, back in the day with baseball, it's like you paid your GM $1 million a year, but you paid your utility infielder, like not even a guy who started, you pay him $5 million. Be like, that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. The most important person making the biggest decisions, granted, outside of ownership, you pay him $1 million, but this guy's not good enough to start at second or short. but maybe
Yeah.
chokes up on 2 strike counts, you're paying him $5 million.
Yeah.
Well, those things have shifted a little bit, and we've seen it in coaching. But the old Brad Stevens thing that was a joke was like, how many NBA players would you take before Brad Stevens? And I think at the height of the lunacy with that, like that list was way shorter than it should have been. And I think Brad Stevens would probably be the first person to tell you that you shouldn't be taking 6 players and then me 7th in this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
But it came up because of Shanahan. Like if Mac Jones is going to look this good with Shanahan, and like whenever let me start with a smaller question. Whenever anybody's talking about the best coach, like how many names are we actually talking about in the NFL? Is it 4 guys?
Yeah, it depends what you're looking for. So to me, there's the best coach in terms of the game planning and the differentiating by their scheme, right? That's one thing. There's usually 5 or 6 offensive play callers that really make a difference, wouldn't you say, in the league? That really you can see over time. They're adding something to it that's different. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's like Shanahan's resume of, oh, this guy's just going to look better now. You know, I think McVay's resume of where Goff was at and then Stafford, but then also adapting quite a bit through later Stafford years. And my assumption being that if he had Darnold, the Rams are probably going to be pretty good if their defense is good. So yes, I think that's a big part.
But then there's other coaches that are more culture setters, a Mike Tomlin or a Pete Carroll, that fans can get upset with, hearing the same message over and over again. And sometimes they're not as good, and their offense might be really bad, and they can't fix it. Right? But they're still a good coach in a different way. So I look at different types of coaches that way. And I put Shanahan. I think Shanahan's probably a good head coach anyway, but he's really special in his ability, to have an offense that obviously can produce with a lot of different quarterbacks, who may not be a good starter everywhere.
So do you think there's any, like if you were to ask owners, like how many players would you take before you take the best coach? I mean, who would your first choice be? If you could have any coach right now that's active to be the coach of your team, who would you take?
Well, to me, Sean McVay would be hard to go against with his age. I think he'd be pretty good. He's still 39. I think he would be very appealing because you protect yourself on the offensive side of the ball. You're going to have continuity. I think he's shown some guys have come out of there, with a good idea of what to do offensively. And I think he's also, I think he's grown as a coach to be more involved in the defensive side. I think he's put in time to, become a better all-around coach. I think it really matters to him. You can see that almost too much sometimes, but I think he's gotten better at his ability. He's got a child now, and he's just gotten better with like his life outlook is probably healthier. So I really like him.
I'm not going to take that personally.
Well, he looked miserable at times in the past and almost walked away. And I just feel like
I don't know. The walk away stuff is always like, dude, you're so, all right. So maybe you'll do TV for a year or two, but you're going to coach. I know,
but he was miserable. I think he was miserable. And I think there's some other boxes have just kind of been checked for him. And it doesn't mean I wasn't saying anything about you.
No, I'm actually doing that for.
But you know what I mean? I just think sometimes you see guys.
I totally understand what
really
you're saying.
Successful people be miserable. Successful person be miserable. That is a real thing all the time. And so I just kind of I like where McVay's at.
All right, I want to ask you about this. Because I don't think we can do. Maybe it's a bigger exercise. That feels like a July segment. How many players would you take in the NFL before you would take the first head coach? That sounds like July content, so we don't need to do that right now.
It does, but it's probably all quarterbacks, right?
Is there a non-quarterback you would take before your first coach?
We'll put it this way:
your first choice.
Is there a non-quarter? Is there a non? Who would the Rams trade Sean McVay for? Mahomes?
Yeah. I would.
Mahomes. Josh Allen? Yeah. I would.
Lamar?
Lamar, you would have to make a decision on what you think he's going to be physically as he gets older and whether or not that is going to be diminishing in the next 5 years. But yes, the idea would be a tier 1 quarterback, which Lamar is right now.
So those 3 guys and Drake May.
But Joe Burrow, would you do Burrow with his injuries?
No, not with his injuries. And I love Burrow. But I mean, I was looking at average.
I love Burrow too.
Average depth of
Jaden Daniels?
No. Not for McVay.
No. So Justin Jefferson? No, they drafted Puka Nacua and he's got Jefferson numbers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like, what about prime Aaron Donald? I mean, if he weren't on the Rams.
I don't know. I think I would rather have McVay.
Jeffrey Simmons in a first? I'm just kidding. Now we're getting ridiculous.
But you know what I mean? So how many draft picks would you take for a McVay? Would you take 3 number 1s?
You wouldn't do Surtain for a head coach?
I mean, for a lot of head coaches, but I'm not going to name them. No.
Okay, let's let me just end on this.
But for somebody like McVay who's 39 and you think he's an elite head coach, you're only taking a handful of top quarterbacks. I would think it's a good exercise.
Yeah, I think you should ask all your contacts that one. But again, we're in the throes of it right now. I was asking you this before we started taping because you can sort this stuff immediately. I thought you were going to need more time to prep. And so the premise is, I feel like, and again, it can be caught up in just the moment of week to week 25 season. I feel like the teams that are down, those yards have never been easier to get. Or maybe I shouldn't say easier, but it's just the ball is moving. So there's different qualifiers that we have to do to make this right. Because if we say 2 minutes to go, you're down 7, well, they may give you the yards up until you're in field goal range, and then it tightens up. So what do you think is the best way to sort this to see if we're seeing something in 25 that is actually an outlier, where whenever I'm watching during the closing 1 o'clock window, obviously because there's so many more games, I'm like, if this team is down 3, I expect them to kick the game-tying field goal.
Yep. So there's 2 ways to keep this in our mind. One is we can find out what's happening now. It doesn't necessarily mean it's predictive for the future, right? But here's what I did just when we were talking. I said, okay, let's look at every season, all the drives that start under the 2-minute warning, so 1:59 down to 0. Let's say that you're at your own 10 to your own 40-yard line, okay? And let's say you're trailing by no more than 3 or you're tied in between there. And now, what percentage of these drives score? Okay. Because any score in that point is going to either tie or take the lead, right? Any kind. So if we go back all the way to 2000, the average drive scoring rate is 22%. This year, it's 47%.
Wow.
Last year, for the whole year, it was 27%. The year before that, 23. The year before that, 15, 27, 34 in 2020. I think that was the big offensive year. Wasn't that a big offensive year in the league?
Yeah, but sure.
Might have been kind of at the tail end of that. But 47 would be the highest. Now, I'm going to just do something right now. And I'm going to do, hey, what about in the first 5 weeks of a season? Is that different than what it's been in the past? And the answer is yes. Yes. 2012, it was 50%. That's the only year that it's been higher than it is right now. Last year, it was 12.5%. It's 47% scoring in those situations right now. So that is something going on. Now, what's interesting too, though, is my mind would go to, okay, kickoff rules is the drive starting, even though we picked a band of drive start yard lines, is the average starting field position better? And the answer is no, it's worse. The average starting field position this year is at your own 24 in those situations. And over the full season in the past, it was at the 27, the 25, the 24, the 25, 24, 25. So the average starting field position is a little bit worse on those than it has been historically.
Specific scenarios.
Of those specific
not
scenarios.
Not on the season in general.
We start our drive under 2 minutes. We're down by no more than 3 or we're tied. And we have the ball at the -10 to the -40 to start our drive.
So then it's true. My eyes are not lying to me.
You're seeing something. Yeah. There's been 8 field goals in those situations this year through 5 weeks, and there were 11 field goals all last year in those. So we got something there. Your eyes This is kind of what research is for, in my opinion. Like, we see something. Is it really true? Are we looking at a mirage of recency, or are we seeing something? And so we're seeing something.
That's a great spot to end. We're going to just want to let the audience know, we're going to keep tracking that. And that's why
I've got it saved.
That's why you watch all those games. That's why you lift all them weights. So I can't wait to see where that number goes, because every time now in a game start this season, I'm just like, yeah, they'll kick it, they'll win, they'll tie it up. Like, it's just automatic. That's an outrageous number.
I'd been thinking early in the year, I'm going to follow up on this, because I feel like the first couple of weeks, I felt like, oh, these long range kickers are changing everything, but that hasn't been quite as stark as it seems either. So it's always good to keep looking at the numbers.
Mike Sando, The Athletic, read him every single week, the Pick Six column, and he has other pieces as well. A great resource and a great guest. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
The Ryen Russillo podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is your home for all your favorite NFL bets, from yards to touchdowns to who will win. And when the Chiefs and Jags play tonight, FanDuel is giving all customers a 50% same-game parlay PBT, or a 30% anytime bet PBT. Okay, let's look at the board. Straight up, I like the Chiefs minus 3.5. Feel like the Ravens, even with all the injuries in that, bit of a get-right game. This Jags turnover margin thing has to end, maybe against a heady Chiefs team looking to do something on national television, on the road. Not that long of a flight, right? Or do we want to go Kelsey? Do you need a win so bad you're willing to go minus 1,100, Kelsey 15 or more yards receiving, right? Just turn to your buddies and be like, I don't care if it's $9. Winner, baby. That seems like a little bit too much to risk. So what if we go 40 plus yards, minus 150? So let's take out that one. Let's go a little Kansas City. I actually like that. Kelsey, 40 plus yards. Kansas City, minus 3.5, plus 196. Now, why are you doing that? Why are you talking about Kelsey here? A couple of reasons. Looking at the Jags game log defensively against opposing tight ends, 4 really, decent games. If I pull it up again, it looks like we got 68 yards, 80 yards, 65, 64 yards against opposing tight ends so far this season. The only game where the tight ends did not show up, that was in the Cincinnati game. Also, Jacksonville, huge market for Taylor Swift. Huge. So you think you're going to get that kind of lyric sung about your body in a new Swift release and not want to show out for Duval? You'd be crazy to think otherwise. Visit FanDuel.com/Ryen, R-Y-E-N, to bet the Chiefs versus the Jags with a 50% same game parlay PBT, or 30% on any bet type PBT. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and older in present select states, or 18 plus in present D.C., Kentucky, Wyoming. Opt-in required. Rewards are non-withdrawable. Restrictions apply, including bonus and token expiration, leg requirements, and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit rg-help.com. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. This episode is brought to you by Scout Motors. Whether on the gridiron or off of it, America loves a game changer. The all-new Scout Terra and Scout Traveler are entering the game. Iconic in the 70s. Reimagined for today and engineered with four-wheel drive, available locking differentials, optional 35-inch tires, and a projected 1,000 pound-feet of torque. Opposing defenses, take note. Join the waitlist at scoutmotors.com. Concept vehicles not available for sale. Features and performance specifications are preliminary and subject to change. Joining the waitlist does not guarantee purchase. Visit scoutmotors.com for details. Okay, we're deep enough into the college football season. I'm going to give out my playoff rankings, the top 12 teams. We're building a bracket today. The reason I've waited, I even think it might be dumb to do this now, but hey, content, baby. I need you to do something. This is how we avoid the Penn States. This is how we avoid some of this record glossing that can happen at times. I think we have enough now, and we'll talk about Penn State where, this way maybe avoids a Penn State where it's just like, I've got to see something from you. But again, carryover is very natural and more so in college football than any other sport. And I'm totally okay with it because I don't know that anybody can do it without that happening. So let's get to it. I have Miami number 1. I think they're the number one team in the country. They're not in the AP poll. That's fine. I think it's kind of a coin toss here. But Miami has 3 kind of 4 good wins. Notre Dame's a good win. Yes, Florida's a good win. I will include Florida. Like, think USC. I don't know if they're going to be ranked. I think there's a meaty good in college football that has to be acknowledged, where you can't just look at a schedule and say ranked win, look at the ranked win. And then these other good wins don't ever seem to count whenever we're arguing all this stuff when we're talking about who should be in or out of the playoffs later on. And it's just a matter of, it's not just, hey, you watch a million games and all this kind of stuff. It's just, there are certain teams that are just good, and maybe they have a tougher schedule and their record doesn't reflect that they're as good as some team that hasn't played anybody. But even with the USF stuff in there and domination against Florida State, I think those are 4 good wins in there. And yes, I would include Florida in it, even before them upsetting Texas at the Swamp. So the schedule, by the way, they will not leave the state of Florida until the 8th game. That's at SMU. They have 4 total road games. It's not egregious because usually it's kind of like 5 for a lot of the big-time programs. Nobody else is ranked the rest of the way. The combined record of the remaining teams on their schedule is 17-16. And they are just housing like these teams physically. It's not so much the score against Notre Dame. Yes, it was a 1-score game. Florida had the ball back in that. But, Florida State goes right down the field, awesome atmosphere. They get a field goal on the board, and then it's like, now we're going to put up like 28 straight on you. And I know it got sloppy late in the score. I just don't think that final score is indicative of what total domination that was by the Hurricanes. So I've got them number 1. Number 2, Ohio State. I watched a lot of this Minnesota game because I really wanted to watch more of Ohio State and watch their offense going into this one. And I think Sayan was allowed to kind of let it fly in this one. He had almost a perfect QBR in this one, 12 yards per attempt, his best performance against really anybody. I mean, you could put the Grambling numbers in there, but like a solid power 4 performance against a Minnesota team that I think is okay. I think they're potentially in that meaty good as well. I'd probably like them having one more win than 3-2. It's funny. I was looking at some of the defensive numbers here for Ohio State, and like there's 2 that are ridiculous. Here's one of them. So coming in, teams were 3 of 35 on any third down that was 4 or more yards in distance. Minnesota converted a 3rd and 5 in the beginning. It was actually an incredible play by Lindsey. Then they went 0 of 9. So now teams are combined 4 of 45 converting third downs that are 4 or more yards in distance against this Ohio State defense. And if you look at the red zone scoring number in college football, I can't sort it by touchdown or field goal. In the NFL, I can. So just it's field goals, it's touchdowns. How often is the opponent scoring in the red zone? Right now against Ohio State, they're scoring 43% of the time. That's a ridiculous number because you're including field goals in that. Number 2 in college football is USC at 57%. So there's that much of a gap. They're number 2 in opponents' yards per play. Oklahoma's number 1. I have Oregon 3. They're 3rd in the AP. They're 2nd in the coaches poll. Some of this can be attributed to, well, how good is that Penn State win? Here's what I know. I watched that entire game, and that's still a good fucking win, even though Penn State inexplicably lost to UCLA. So I think it's important to remind ourselves the Russillo rule here of on that night, did that look like it was an impressive win? And I think it was, but you certainly, like if you're going to make that argument, you can do the same thing for Ohio State against Texas. But I don't know if that's why I have Miami ahead of them. But there's also like an interesting part of this where when you go through the SC depth, or excuse me, not SC, Southern California, when you go through the SEC's depth and you start looking at the teams that are like 10th or 11th or 12th, it's easily the deepest league. I don't even know how it's debatable, but people will try. But does the SEC have that title contender that even matches up with these 3 teams? As of now, it feels like there's a gap between those 3 teams and then who the SEC challenger would be. Number 4, I have Oklahoma. If Mateer weren't available for the playoff today, maybe I'd look at it differently. They're plus 2.5 against Texas in that spot, which makes sense because Mateer isn't playing. Hawkins is fun. We'll see what happens. 5, I have Ole Miss. A&M, I have 6. Now, A&M, if you look at the rankings with their win against Mississippi State, is actually pretty good. It was an ugly game early. They ended up housing them the AP has it Ole Miss, A&M, and Oklahoma. So I have it a little reversed here. I'll just explain all this stuff. There are a lot of defensive numbers for A&M that you're going to like. They're 5th in opponents' third down conversion. They're 17th in yards per play allowed. Ole Miss is actually 32nd and 39th in those categories. I like Trinidad more than Marcel Reed. I think there's some red zone numbers there for A&M defensively that maybe you don't really like. Reed's completed 20 passes once all season. That was the first game against UTSA. So I like Mateer the most. I like Trinidad the second most. I like Marcel Reed third out of that group. But some people are really, really on A&M. I apparently am not one of those people so far. Number 7, what are you going to do, Rye? What are you going to do? Indiana 7th in the AP, 7th in the coaches poll. I'm going to put Alabama 7th. Figures. Here's the problem. And I'm going to call everybody out on this right now. I actually like Indiana way more now than I did a year ago because they've got that Illinois win. They've got that Iowa win. Like there's some things there. There's technically that rank win, but like the way Illinois responded after that loss to beat USC and looked like the superior team, like that's going to be a good win to me. And they killed them. But if there was supposed to be some sort of like adjustment to how people look at teams, what do you think Alabama's record would be if they didn't play Florida State, played Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State to start the year? Like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look at that and then go, okay, but the other team has a loss. But yeah, they went to Tallahassee. And look, a win at Georgia is better than a win against Illinois at home, even though they won by 53 points. So that's what I'm doing. And I think everybody should do it instead of just saying, hey, this team's undefeated and this team has a loss. I'm not even sure that I love Bama because they also have the Vandy win in there. And that was a tough game. And they got the two deep they got the fumble on Pavia. They got the interception on Pavia, which is a terrible throw. That was a game. That was another one of those scores. The final score is not a good indicator of what that game was. So that wasn't like, this isn't like Bama's dominant and they're rolling and there aren't some issues that I have with them defensively. But resume-wise, you have to reward Bama for playing somebody and losing than not playing anybody and then still having, I don't know if the Vandy win at home is better. Look, it isn't because the Illinois win, even though it's top 10, whatever, they killed them. But there's nothing to compare with the Georgia win on Indiana's resume. So I think that's really important. 8, I have Texas Tech with their win at Utah. 9, I have Indiana. I'd put them third if they beat Oregon this week. They're plus 8.5 on FanDuel. Georgia. All right. So I have them 10th. If neutral field against Indiana, probably not sure what I would do. I mean, the fact I'm even thinking about it is a compliment to the Hoosiers. But the defense is not the same. We covered that after the Bama loss. 45th in opponents' yards per play. We thought the drop-off was into the 24 season. The drop-off continues into the 25 season. I think they're the most one-dimensional team of any of the top 10 teams that I have here. And if I look at the top 10, so 1 through my 10 that I just did, and look at team passer rating, they're 35th, which is lowest of any of these teams. LSU, by the way, is 99th. Mizzou's 29th. So LSU is 11th in the AP. I'll go with Tennessee for my playoff rankings. So I've got the Vols 11th. 12th. What are you going to do, Rye? You're going to put LSU in there? You've got Georgia Tech as an option. The Wake game's still tough to kind of ignore. Mizzou, South Carolina win. Is that better than LSU's win at Clemson? Michigan, Underwood, 270 yards in their win against Wisconsin. The first 270-yard game by a Michigan passer in 2 years. Underwood have let a couple balls fly, by the way. Justice Haynes has been incredible for him. Already almost 700 yards. 4th in the country. So if we're going to talk rushing, we could talk Hardy with Mizzou, who's actually leading the country. So I know that there's this hope that I have because of LSU's talent, but the offense is even worse when you start looking up some of these stats that I just can't do it. So I'll go ahead and put Mizzou there 12th over the options that I have on the board. Okay, so Penn State and Texas both lose. They go from 7th and 9th in the polls to unranked. That's the first time you've had 2 top 10 teams fall out of the rankings after the same weekend since 1986. UCLA was 0-4. They'd already fired their coach. Neuheisel just started calling plays. You saw his picture everywhere. That's the first time an 0-4 team has beat a top 10 team in 40 years. Then you have the Texas side of this where Arch Manning had like 3 good throws. 2 of them were back-to-back. The second was a touchdown. The rest of it makes me think he looks more like Jackson Arnold than anybody else. And Florida's offense, which had been a mess, looks a lot better when Dallas Wilson is in the lineup, the freshman stud receiver. Look, I'm holding out on the Lagway thing. I know what the numbers are. I know the 5 picks against LSU. I think he's like right up there with the most talented quarterbacks in college football, and I know it hasn't necessarily worked out for him. So you have the Texas loss. Don't know what to do with them because they have everybody. The Penn State loss where, Franklin just couldn't help himself. He had to mention the travel. No one fucking cares, man. Like, you guys all did this to yourselves. All right? You ruined the geographical nature and identity and culture of this sport. I read this headline about private equity getting involved. I was like, that's awesome. Look, at least Sark didn't complain about the travel, I don't think, to the Swamp.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari. 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Today's life advice is brought to you by Amazon Business. And when it comes to bringing your visions to life, trying Amazon Business is an easy service to recommend. With smart business buying, Amazon Business lets you get everything you need to grow in one familiar place, from office supplies to IT essentials and maintenance tools. Now let's get to it. All right, life advice. The email address, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. What do we got here, folks? How is everybody?
Great morning.
How great is this morning with Drake Maye doing what he did last night?
I can't remember the last time I had a great morning like this. It's been a while.
Damn.
Did you ever think about volunteering?
You know what? I'll put it on the list.
All right.
I'm open to suggestions.
What are Drake May's charities? What's he got? Kyle signing up.
You could start a Drake Maye fund. I don't know if that would sound good, though. That might...
I'll workshop it all. Let's start a text thread after this and,
let's
take some action.
Let's title it something.
Yeah.
Something. You're a Drake Maye guy too, Sir Rudy.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but I had some money on a game last year. I had the Rams, so I watched that game very closely. But the Pats should have won the game last year, and I was like, dude, Drake is awesome. And I know it's been kind of weird since then. I think the coaching obviously last year was terrible, but I've been a believer. It's funny. People sometimes accuse me of being like, hey, I just like kind of like mirror your takes. But I was a big Jaden guy and I was a big Drake Maye guy. Didn't love Caleb. And I know Caleb's kind of coming around a little bit, but like I'm feeling good about my 2 guys. Jaden with a huge win yesterday as well.
What didn't you like about Caleb?
Careful.
Have anything to do with football?
I'm not a big USC guy, so I guess there was a little bias in there. I think you start doing the, hey, like this is the next Mahomes thing, and he's like, he doesn't, everything's completely off platform. I'm not trying to be like Todd McShay here, but like, I just
off platform.
Yeah, I didn't really see it. So, there it is.
I was telling Ryan before we got on that I went to this thing called Cosm yesterday with my father-in-law bought his tickets. He's a big Bills fan. Like he even bought that rivalries jersey to wear so it could be like a whiteout. Like he's a big Bills guy forever. And his girlfriend's from out here and she's basically became a Bills person. And then my wife ordered this Bills t-shirt in secret, like wore a sweatshirt until we got in the car to get to the game, takes it off and like just comes out as a Bills fan as we're at this game. I was so pissed. I felt betrayed. And what really made me so mad is like she didn't know anything. Like there were these little like the records under the thing. She's like, what are those numbers? I'm like, you can't wear a Bills jersey, or, a Bills t-shirt and like, be clapping for them and ask me, what do those numbers mean up there? It's like, yeah, that's the record. Anyway.
Keep up. Yeah, that's tough.
Man, I'm so glad we didn't lose because I would have been a puddle because that was, I felt like I got stabbed in the back yesterday. It's like, if you cared, it's one thing, but you don't care enough to even know. and you just decided to come out against me. I mean, listen, your dad's great, but
never rooted for the Bills ever in her life, and she secretly wore a Bills shirt.
She loves her dad, man. I'll give you that, but come on, we're on a lease together. Christ.
I will say those Bills jerseys were kind of cool. You didn't like them?
Yeah, I like the Patriots ones better. I thought they looked silly.
They were fine. Yeah, I mean, I guess
you like the little silver number there, accents.
No, I guess they were good. What were those? The ice whites or something? Is that what they were called?
Be careful,
dude. If you told me that's what they're saying, I'd be like, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
not a political statement.
I will say one guy, I mean, that thing Cosm is awesome. I'm not doing any free pub here, but one guy got like stadium drunk and literally fell over a row. Like it really, like it already felt like we were in a stadium, and then they're playing music, like you get the broadcast as well. But when they go to commercial, they're playing music. This guy was like doing like this and then just totally fell over a row. I've never felt more like I was at a stadium with a guy like falling down two
Maybe
rows.
That guy was an actor and they were just like, we want to make this thing feel real. We could have some guy get super hammered and fall down.
Hammered
and
Steve.
He was wearing he was wearing a Josh Allen MVP shirt. He gets up, doesn't get kicked out, and then starts an MVP chant. I was like, this is incredible. Cosm LA, dude. You guys are the best.
Damn.
All right. This is an announcement, so we'll probably not the announcement that you're waiting on. It was an engagement announcement from a listener, but I think we'll hold off on that. All right. So we've got a wife checking in. This is a good segue out of Kyle's betrayal. Thanks. My husband says you need my stats. I'm 5'4", 116 pounds. I can probably bench 50 pounds. Here's the thing. I know Boston fans are not normal. While he didn't explicitly make our wedding conditional on my lifelong undying hatred of the Yankees, it was understood. So help me out. My husband is never at a loss for words about sports. His voice gets husky when he talks about the Red Sox. And when Tatum was injured at the end of last season, he spends hours messaging with his guys, a group of 7 from grade school. He texts with 7-year-olds? A group of 7 from grade school. Okay.
They go way back.
Yeah. He texts with 7-year-olds from grade school. No, they've known each other since they were 7. Or what it meant for the 2026 season. And if I say something like, quote, I think Roman Anthony is a really good player, his eyes sparkle. And he validates that with a "you are so right" cutie pie and then elaborates for me. But if I say my feelings were a little hurt that you didn't admire me in that black dress, the guy is at a loss for words. I mean, he's got nothing. He might, with prodding, choke out nice, but that's about it. I mean, come on, Ryan, what gives? Answering this email will help a lot of wives understand what we're dealing with here. I think it's kind of like the assumption thing that men can do is like, why would I tell you something that you already know? And that can be one of those lifelong gender disconnects that never quite get solved unless you're like, I have one buddy. I almost said one husband. That would have been newsworthy, but I have one buddy who's like just really good at being a husband. Like when I go visit, he does all of those things. And I think he wants to too. So it's not fake.
Is she way hotter than him?
She is. But it's not like he is a forever above the rim player. I mean, he's Stromile Swift. I can't believe I screwed up my guy's name. He's forever been Stromile Swift his entire life, to the point where we had to like sit down at one point and we're like, we all thought you were sort of repulsive and apparently you're not. And
trust me, this is a compliment.
yeah, right. No offense.
Really just want to say congrats, man. Yeah.
You're doing great. Yeah.
yeah. Because we were kind of like, what's going on here? Like this guy, I get this one makes sense, but like this guy, I don't know. I mean, I can't quite figure him out. But whenever I've interacted with he and his wife, like there's a real, like, just he's made a concerted effort throughout his marriage to be like, I'm going to say the things that guys do a bad job with. And I think he wants to. I think it's actually like in his nature to want to be like that. The point is that most of us just don't do that. Like it's not efficient. It's like, if you look great, why would I tell you look great again? Or like, what's going on that I need to tell you you're great all the time? So,
or if you're like first high school girlfriend or college, you just like said it too much. He's like, dude, you're weirding me out. Like,
that too.
Maybe you're scarred from that. You're like, man, nice guys do finish last and I'm never going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, right. Like you don't want to, Exactly, Kyle. Like there's a line, and unfortunately the line is different for every other person that you're going to date. Some people need to hear it all the time, which is a different validation conversation altogether. The point is, he's not sure if you realize how special Roman Anthony is. So, like, I'm sure you look great in the dress, and he knows that you look great in the dress, and, like, it doesn't need to be discussed. I can totally understand where he's at, wondering where you're at on Roman Anthony. And so that's a special kind of backing for your partner that, it's going to fall in a different category.
We're talking about a potential behavior change here, right? Is in her stats, how long have they been married? Like, is this something that's gone unsaid for a little too long? I mean, nothing's too long if you guys are, you're married to be able to talk about something. But if we're like 10 years down the road and she's just like, man, why don't you ever tell me I look pretty? It's just like, that's going to be a little tougher to break the mold, I think, than if it's like freshly married or whatever, right? She said husband, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's no number there, but I guess they've been together for a while. If she's emailing the show because he listens all the time, and like, there's a really good chance you've had that black dress forever. He's probably seen you in that black dress a bunch of different times. Roman Anthony just got called up.
That's perspective.
Yeah. We were waiting on him, and he delivered. So this one's long. Let's go for it. What's up, fellas? 6 foot, 190, crush home gym, 50-pound adjustable dumbbells and kettlebell, and cruise to an 8-minute mile. 8 minutes. I wish Oregon were here. What happened to that guy?
He said eight's good, right? We've done this before. He said that.
It's not brag worthy.
Not at all. What was the debate? I was out, obviously, for that. What was I just read about it.
It was what could you like say you ran the mile in?
The mile, not what's your average mile. Right. And I think that was what people were like, you guys
be impressed by it.
Right.
Yeah, it's like 7, probably, right? A little over 7.
I think it should be lower than that, but
well, what age too? If I ran a 7-minute mile, I would tell people about it tomorrow. I'd tell you about it today. Be like, guys, look what I did.
Should we do YouTube special for this week? And for people that are going to be like, oh, Russillo, I bet you can't run a 7 mile. I bet I can't right now either. But I'm also not like training for it and then bragging about it. I think we've covered this, and it actually led to a million emails from people that I don't want to ever read again. So we're good. With 2 young kids, I'm able to hit the garage gym 3 times a week. I'm feeling absolutely jacked and proud. All right. Sorry, after we crushed your mouth. Sorry in advance for the long preamble to the question here, but I think setting the scene in advance is necessary. Dude, nobody sets a scene like your boy, but this is a long one. My next door neighbor was a quirky and interesting guy. As a first-time home owner, it was perfect. He was retired and happy to help with any DIY task I needed. Why go to Ace Hardware and ask for help when I can go right next door? Ask David for advice, then come home from work the next day with all the tools and material needed to seek a leaking gutter or dig out and build a French drain. This free and convenient service, of course, came with the drawback of him waiting for me to come home from work every day to tell me stories he told me 100 times, or an update on how late the recycling pickup was that day. I'm sad to say that sometimes I would have to stealthily get from my car to my house to avoid what would undoubtedly be a 15-minute conversation about God knows what. I mean, look, totally been there. I can't wait to fucking ask about recycling pickup times in 25 years. I'm going to be brutal with it.
Price of chicken wires up. Have you been to Home Depot recently? Right.
Got any packages I can pick up? Guys leaving town? You just text me. I'll get right over there. Posters, golf clubs. Occasionally, he would be my help in the yard while I was at work without me asking. It usually was harmless, busy work, but sometimes he would do things above and beyond the call that I would never want him to do. He cut one of my trees down without asking, claiming the beetle had infested a beautiful Japanese maple in my front yard. So he had no choice but to chainsaw it to pieces without me asking. That one really pissed me off, but he felt bad about it, so that he bought me a new maple and we planted it together. Wow. Over 12 years.
Making memories.
12 years. I think we needed this. backstory. Over 12 years, I really appreciated him for what he was. A unique character in my life, always meant well, and deep down was a good person, a congenial but socially awkward person. He frequented the restaurant down the street every night, had a few cocktails, and shot the shit with the bartender and patron next to him. If I were walking the dog or strolling the baby at the nearby lakefront, you could count on him chatting up some poor soul caught in his web. The day I moved into my house, he rang the doorbell an hour later, and he's wearing 2 watches, a Rolex on one wrist and a digital Casio on the other.
Never forget where you came from, dude.
He gave a 5-minute speech about his life in the neighborhood, but obviously my first question to him afterwards was, what's with the 2 watches? Oh, man, that's a bold question. Right. That's like a day 2. Like, hey, I couldn't help, but this guy did it immediately. His response was that he was a pilot and engineer and simply liked wearing 2. I figured out pretty quickly that the guy who wears 2 watches has to be the same guy who has a sign that says Chevy Man Cave above his front door. And so no shocker. He was a bachelor his whole life. His first wife left him immediately after coming back from Vietnam because he was a baby killer. And that clearly really messed with him. In fact, given how many times he told me that story, you could say it was a real turning point in his life. Being a bachelor, he often mentioned he was going to leave everything he had to St. Jude's in his will. He would visit the kids there every month and felt a deep connection with them. Last year, he started telling me about his watches again. I finally asked him, what's so special about the Rolex anyway? I'm not a watch guy, so I was generally curious. He said he felt a connection to Rolex because he wore one flying jets in Vietnam, and he attributes the Rolex to making it out of the war alive. Wow, that's pretty great. The next time he mentioned how he was going to donate to St. Jude's, I said to him, I'd love the opportunity to buy his watch off of him, as it'd be a great way to remember him. It actually caught him off guard, and he went deep into thought. He said, I guess it's all going to the same place. If I give them the watch, they'll sell it, or you give me the money for it and they get the money, he said. So, okay. That was the last time we ever talked about the watch. Shortly after, he hurt his back. Everything changed. He stopped going to the bar. Wasn't outside much anymore. He became a recluse, which is the opposite of his personality. Sadly, seems like he drank himself to death in May of this year. Sad. His brother picking up the pieces and sorting out his estate, and I told him how he wanted everything to go to St. Jude's. After a few conversations with the brother, I mentioned the story I just told and expressed my interest in buying the watch from his estate. This time I had no idea what the watch was besides a Rolex, what model or year, and didn't have a clue what to expect on pricing. The brother said no, that he wanted to keep the watch for sentimental reasons. I said, no problem, I get it. He never mentioned it again. Yeah, I mean, this actually seems like all like really good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? As opposed to, hey, this guy's about to die. That's a pretty sweet vintage Rolex.
Right. It's all above board.
Right.
Yes.
Like there's a version of this where you're like, of course the brother said no immediately or whatever. And I could even see the brother not even thinking about it, instinctively saying no. It'd be like the neighbor sitting there being like, hey, can I buy his Rolex right now?
Are you plotting on me, motherfucker? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That was 3 months ago. Last week, the brother called me and said to come over. He just handed me the watch. Whoa. Said that his brother would have wanted me to have it. We started crying. It was very emotional, and I'm still in a state of shock about it. I used context clues to find out if the watch, and found out the watch is a vintage 1971 Pepsi GMT. The watch is disassembled and clearly needs some maintenance, so I took it to a local Rolex dealer to see what a repair would cost. Initial repair of about $5,000, and a likely 4-month wait, as it needs to be shipped out to some hardcore watchmakers, potentially in Geneva. Given its age, I should expect another $2,000 every 5 years if I want to keep it running perfectly, with no promise that parts will exist decades from now to repair it further. The watchmaker told me right now, as is and disassembled, people would pay $30,000 for the watch. What would you do in this situation? Pay the money to fix the watch knowing what it will cost for future repairs, sell the watch and buy a new version of the exact same thing and pocket $15K. Keep the watch as is, leave it in a box, pass it down to my children. I think this is an incredible heirloom with a story to tell, and that's what I find to be most compelling about it. I think my neighbor would want me to repair it and wear it, which is the route I'm leaning, but curious how you guys would move forward with this. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with your financial situation, right? Or do you think in the future, I mean, most of us kind of sit around thinking we're all going to do better than we're currently doing, which is kind of cool about all of us in a way. I mean, it's why people do no money down, 0 interest for 12 months, because they're like, fuck, I'll be killing it 12 months. 12 months is when
I haven't even started my podcast yet. Yeah, I mean,
that's when things are really going to turn around. Month 11. Yeah, I mean, there's just something in our nature that thinks like, so I would ask, like, if you actually think you're legitimately going to be doing better down the road, would you regret taking this profit for something that, I mean, if this guy, look, you knew him for 12 years and it seems like you really cared about him. And the fact that you broke down with the brother. I'd also add in, I think it's a little shitty for you to turn around. And I don't think you're leaning this way. You said you're leaning the other way of keeping it and having it. But to get the watch and then get it for free and then flip it for 30 grand or 25 grand minus expenses on this kind of repair, I think that would be kind of shitty. And it also might be something, even if you're financially strapped right now, it could be something 5 years from now you're going to absolutely regret. I don't have a ton of experience in the vintage thing. I would say 2,000 every 5 years. Maybe that's mandatory. Like Rolexes are supposed to be serviced pretty regularly. I don't know if you really need to do it as often as they say you have to do it with the newer ones. And yeah, when you send it away, it goes away for a long time. So there's that part of it. But if you think you're going to be in a position in however many years where the $25,000 actually like long term isn't going to make that big of a difference, and that you got it for free under the pretense that this is something that, you know, you'd be able to remember your neighbor by and this guy's brother, I would personally feel like it would be kind of fucked to sell it and flip it, even though that's a pretty nice profit. So.
Yeah, this is like a human story. This is like this is like a Paul Thomas Anderson thing. Yeah. I mean, this is like, he said no, had a change of heart. You guys came together, you cried, you got your maple back when that whole thing, that would have been a life advice thing in itself. It's like, do I get the town involved? Like this whole story has been like great. And this would be a really kind of terrible end, I think. I'm not sure if karma's real or not, but I think if it is, you certainly would be racking up some points in the bad department if you did that. And you can get the watch fixed on your own time. If it's not like, you don't have to, if the watch guy's like, all right, $5,000 right now, take it or leave it. Like you could be like, all right, I'll put this back at home until I'm ready to drop $5,000 on it. I think this is, talk about found money, but like in a good way. Like this is like capital, like emotional capital. It's not like, you don't have to just take $30,000 for this watch that was clearly special enough that he wore it with another watch just because he wanted to get the fit together. So yeah, I think, I'd keep the watch no matter what and get it fixed on your own time.
Yeah, first off, this is like an incredible story and just human connection. And it just makes me think of, I had a neighbor at my old house that I just really didn't like. And it was a bummer. And it would be so cool to have a connection with a neighbor like that I'm like jealous of that experience. We got a better setup now, which is nice, although they're on the younger side. But like to have an old dude like that who, isn't even, isn't your dad, but you can just kind of lean on for stuff and you grew with for 12 years. I'm not a karma guy, but I would be looking over my shoulder if I sold that watch. I wouldn't feel good about that whatsoever. And here's, like I think you guys said it, like why, if you have the money to fix it now, fix it. If not, I would just hold on to it. I mean, what is the depreciation? Like if in 10 years you're in a totally different space and you need the money or something, like, is it still going to be worth like 20 to 30 grand? Like, could you just kind of kick the can down the road? I think if you sold it right now, it's just a bad, you're putting bad stuff into the universe. And I'm not into like mood rocks or any of that stuff whatsoever. I don't think you want that on your conscience. And what's the worst thing that happens? Like if you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a functionable wearable watch. You can just have this nice thing in memory of a guy that, you spent a lot of cool time with and was a cool dude in your life. So that's what I wear.
Watches that don't work all the time. I wear watches that don't work all the time until I can get them.
Me too.
I'll bring four of them to a guy in the mall and be like, take out this link.
It's just a battery change, exactly,
whatever,
yeah.
And then do some batteries, please. Do 4 batteries at once. I've been wearing watches that don't work. When people ask me the time, I have to like peek at my phone because my watch doesn't work. I'll be like, oh, I just went to New York. This thing's all screwed up. Like I'm hours off. So it's not crazy to wear a watch that don't work.
You just say like, well, this is set to Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Can you wear a broken vintage watch though? Like if it's probably cooler. Like the watch is old and vintage. If it's broken, people understand that too. You don't even have to explain that. It's like, yeah, it's just a cool watch. It doesn't work anymore, but I like the way it looks.
Yeah, you could probably get away with all that, but there's a really good chance too, because it's a Rolex and because it's this old, it's going to be worth more in the future too, on top of everything else. I mean, the watch market thing. Sometimes you could just look at like Bitcoin's price. And then if you go to the secondary watch market, like something that you could really, really like, that's like really expensive. You're like, oh, all this stuff has gone up again. I mean, I don't know if anything will approach the absolute runaway freight train of the secondary pricing luxury watch market during the pandemic, where I guess people were like, I'm not going on vacations. I'm not doing this. But it was just odd. Like these luxury items during that time, people were just buying up everything.
Do you know that because you were going to be one of those guys?
No, but I'll look up how much stuff is going for. I didn't buy anything during that time at all. Okay. I bought a house, so that's why I wasn't buying anything else.
You avoided the NFT
Smart
craze.
move.
Yeah, nice.
Sagged.
No, I did. I looked around and was like, okay, nobody, like people think the world's going to end. I was like, so I'll buy a house that I think is going to go lower than it would have gone.
Nice.
So I didn't buy a watch. Usually your banker's not like, hey, what the hell just happened here? I thought we were making smarter decisions on this thing. No, but you can look, even like stuff like StockX and sneakers. I mean, I don't know. I can probably connect the dots on how that was happening of like all of this stuff that you would have thought when people were freaking out about the economy and then people getting checks. It just felt like people were like, I'm actually kind of fine. And now I have this extra money coming in. For a lot of people, that money was absolutely like the most important thing to keep them upright and keep them going through things. I think there was a lot of people that didn't necessarily make a ton of money that qualified for it and didn't, because you could just see like
folks that worked on computers just got $1,800 or 12, whatever it was. Like if you just like didn't miss a beat, you still got that.
Yeah,
that check.
Right. So and this is not some big economic complaint that I have about government or subsidizing things. It was just very clear there's a correlation between spending habits on certain things. So you would think like, how is it so hard to like get this car? Well, somebody that can afford, say, $100,000 Land Rover, they're thinking, well, I'm not renting a house in Aspen. I'm not going to the Caribbean. I'm not doing the 3 vacations. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you started just seeing things that were like, you could also talk about supply chain and all that kind of thing, but it was very obvious there were a lot of things happening during that time that almost ran counter to what you would have thought people would have been doing. So that's all.
Did you also get the boat during that time? I feel like, dude, just like, yeah, just get a boat, get on the water. Fresh air.
It was a little bit after it. Although California felt like we got like an extra year. They're like, if you get a boat.
We did, though. That's because we did.
Yeah. They're like, some guy came by the marina. He's like, no mask. Like, it's just me. They're like, nobody would have a boat this big by themselves. It's just me, dude.
Yeah.
Gonna listen to some Allman Brothers out in Malibu.
Let me live.
Just me. Weed free also. Today's life advice was brought to you by Amazon Business. It's time to free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Cerruti. Thanks to Jonathan Frias. You can check us out on video on the Spotify app, YouTube. Ryen Russillo Podcast, Ringer, Spotify.
They were going to name me Michael Jordan. My dad was like, I don't think he can live up to it, so they named me Michael Jared.
Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is there. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.